Dear Africa NCA Community of Practice members, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. We are excited to have this specific and special webinar focusing on discussing the Africa NCA CoP strategy and roadmap for sustainability. Our CoP Secretariat members and experts joining us to share the draft strategy and the process so far and the advancement and development so far up to today. And I would like to start by welcoming you all. As you know, by names, I'm Peter Katanisa. I'm the coordinator for the Africa NCA Community of Practice. And but I'll hand over to Ms. Ngao, who is the TTL for this regional project on behalf of the World Bank. And I'm glad to invite her to make her introductions to this webinar, and later on to introduce our experts who have been working on this strategy. Ms. Ngao, the floor is yours.
And we will try not to have our cameras on so that we are kind to areas where connectivity may be a challenge. But just riding on Peter's welcoming remarks to say thank you so much to those that have already joined in this important webinar for the community of practice. This, I think, is a collective journey that we are on as a community for natural capital account. I would say we've come together again after we had a very fruitful engagement together as a community in Nairobi last year in September, when we hosted our policy forum. And from there, I think you, as members of this community of practice, respective countries that were participants and signed up to the declaration that we had made after that policy forum, mandated us as a secretariat, which is currently being financed and supported by the World Bank, to provide a roadmap, a strategic way forward for this community of practice. And so this is what we want to present to you as members of the community of practice. Firstly, let me recognize if the chairperson for the steering committee is part of this meeting. I hope they're already joined, as well as the co-chair. AFTB is a co-chair. They maintained their co-chair to the community of practice. And now South Africa is sitting as the chair of the community of practice. I hope Ms. Amy is a part of this discussion, because I think it wouldn't be a full discussion if we do not have our leaders for this community of practice. I also want to recognize all the partner institutions that have already joined to this webinar so far, and those that will be joining following on. So thank you so much to our partner institutions, to this community of practice, focal points from respective countries, as well as the member individuals. So what are we presenting to the members today? An appreciation of the strategy that has been prepared by our two experts who are engaged by the World Bank, to look at the successes, look at the failures, look at the challenges, as well as look at aspirations from respective countries who are able to share their impact or result stories from this community of practice, and use all that as part of the methodology to prepare the next strategy, or I would say the next roadmap for sustainability for this community of practice. In this strategy, as you hear from our two experts who have worked on this document, there's presentation of what the different phases could be to be able to support this community of practice going forward. But what I would like to stress specifically from our side is something that we already mentioned during the policy forum in Nairobi, that our funding source, the Global Program for Sustainability, the GPS, will be closing next year, and that means we'll not have the financing envelope to continue supporting the Secretariat. And also, something that we mentioned and we agreed, I think, as a community, is to see if we can host our community of practice within a regional body. And so this is really something that we want to get inputs from various members on how has that been reflected in this strategy, and how can this best sit with the next host, or I would say the next financing window for this community of practice. So let me not speak so much. I think the detail is in the presentation that our experts will give, so that we give more time for you as our members to really contribute. But I think the other thing that we've noticed from the respective participants is that there would also be other members who would like to learn from us, who have joined from other community of practice. So we continue, as always, to take a lead and to showcase what the community of practice for natural capital accounting can actually do. So let me, Peter, I think already mentioned, I will go ahead and introduce Mulugeta, Dr. Rashida and Dr. Mulugeta, who have worked on this to start the presentation. So that we all get an appreciation, and please feel free to put your comments or questions immediately as they pop, as you have them in the chat section, so that we can already compile them for responses once we get to a point of plenary and discussion. Thank you so much. Mulu and Rashida, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mulu, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ngao, for the introduction. Hello to the NCA family, the fraternity. I'll try to give the first few slides, and for the strategy document, my colleague Rashida would present. So let me start with welcoming you, and it has been a very educational, very interesting journey for us, for me and Rashida, to learn more about NCA's community of practice, what you guys have done jointly as a community of practices, and what has been achieved. But it has been the indication and the recommendations, as Ngao mentioned earlier, by the Nairobi meeting, that this good work that was done by the community of practices from 2019 to 24 should be continued at high vigor, with more ownership of the African countries as well as regional African institutions. Rashida, can you move? Hello?
On slide 2, Mulugeta, you can proceed.
Okay, as indicated on the slide, we have three objectives or aims of this webinar. We felt that as owners of the community, as members of the community of practices, we felt that we need to share this strategy and roadmap document with you, the contents at least, and get your feedback. And also we want to be guided by your recommendations for better resource mobilization efforts. The issue has been resource mobilization in the past few years. Okay. So it has been very clear that the declaration, the Nairobi Declaration, has insisted that all African countries should join this effort so that they can mainstream the approach in their planning and development agendas in each country. So there is a call on African countries to join, and also governments and regional bodies and private sectors to support the COP financially as well as technically. As you can see, there is a very strong declaration that was released during the Nairobi meeting. That was during the Africa Summit in Nairobi last year. Next. I can't. Rashida, can you move the slide?
So it's showing the next slide with the achievements of COP at the moment, Mulugeta. Can you see that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
These are the achievements that are presented here, and they are very clear that there has been a lot of work done. seminars, webinars, trainings, and online exchange of events. The numbers are there. It has been under the conditions, under COVID environment. The community of practice have done an excellent job of these initial achievements, but we wanted to make sure that we move ahead further. Next. Okay. So it has been recognized by the supporting institutions, the World Bank and the Secretariat, that we need to make sure that we have a strong support, that we can incorporate the Africa sustainability themes in which we are supposed to prioritize and focus moving forward in terms of achieving ambitions, ownership, resource mobilization. The other task was to make sure that there is regional alignment of the regional bodies, blocks, networks, academic institutions, including private sector. And then we felt that there is a need to enhance communication and engagement strategy, and then develop a resource mobilization strategy to explore future opportunity strategies and so on. So that's the task we were given. So the methodology we followed is very clear. We were able to make literature review, survey to assess the impact so far, as indicated earlier. We have undertaken SWOT analysis. Can you move the slides? And also document what different countries success stories from the NCA initiatives that few countries, about 6 countries, have given us their achievements so far in mainstreaming NCA activities in their respective countries. And also we were able to engage stakeholders via meetings, webinars, emails, collaboratively to develop the strategy. Rashida, can you move to the slide? Okay. So the strategy, as I said earlier, depended on what was achieved in the first 4 years, and also we wanted to look at, if we have come so far the first 4 years, where do you go from here? How do you make sure that it is a long term, it is sustainable, it doesn't remain a project of an institution alone. So we thought that they need to develop a comprehensive strategy document which will have the approach, the methodology, and the plans. And insights to the rationale behind the strategies. The roadmap, that's the roadmap emphasized over what we're going to do the next 5 years, from current design to future state, detailing key activities, outputs, and so on. So we have divided this implementation, staggered it into different phases. The first phase 1 deals with year 1, second phase is year 2 and 3, third phase is year 4 and 5. So the resource mobilization is ongoing. We have to align with resources, strategic objectives, identify African hosts, and confirm commitment from partner institutions. Next, Rashida. So as you can see, the SWOT analysis has indicated the strengths of the current COP, what it has done so far. It has also some weakness in terms of there was a lack of active participation by the community members. Can you move to the next slide, Rashida? Okay, what you see is the SWOT analysis that indicates the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and also the threats that the CoP have faced in the last 4 years. So we wanted to make sure that these things are included in our study, in our analysis. And the second activity that we did was we had an online survey that was conducted to members. Some of you have responded to the survey. We would like to thank you. We had really gathered a lot of insights. About 60, more than the number of people we have here have responded to the survey. It was institutions, individual countries, and they use the information from the COP facilitated about financing, about government, what should be done. And the key recommendations that came out of this is the COP has to serve as NCA role model with concrete funding, increased networking opportunities in Africa, increase data. So we, based on SWOT analysis, based on the survey responses, we have been made with this. So a very good feedback on this survey through this work, the workshops, the webinars, participants have, and the course are there. This is what I shared with you, that why did we start this? What have you reviewed? From the survey respondents. Now we go to in detail into the plan. So Rashid, back to you.
Thanks so much, Mulugeta. I hope that the slides are moving the same for you that it is for me. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Ngao, for that fantastic introduction, and Mulugeta for really explaining what we have done in terms of the methodology in developing this fantastic strategy for Africa, for the strategic plan for natural capital accounting community of practice. And I'm so pleased now to share some of the highlights of the strategy and get into a little bit more of the detail in terms of what we developed and what we came up with collaboratively for this, for taking the COP further into the future in a sustainable way. So, you know, the COP was established in 2019 already, so it had this fantastic foundation, and we had 4 years to work with essentially. But one of the most exciting components of the COP was that it had an existing vision. So we didn't need to go and craft the vision for the strategy. The COP has a vision. The vision was created in a collaborative way. And it's really this North Star that we are aiming towards through this strategy that we developed. And everything that came out of the strategy is really looking towards how can we ensure that the COP provides this vibrant platform to advance understanding, management, and valuation of natural capital accounting. And ultimately, the goal is to facilitate the mainstreaming of natural capital accounting across Africa for improved policy outcomes and decision-making across Africa, and also related to investment decision-making on that. And so the goal of the COP is to support best practices, and we do this in multiple ways, building capacity, offering training, but also coming back to this main aim of mainstreaming natural capital accounting into national statistics, policy, and investment decision-making processes. So this was one of the quotes that we put into this presentation simply because we wanted to express the value of the COP that was created over the first 4 years. And it's really fantastic to think about the impact that the COP has had already with, you know, the small team that's running the COP as part of the Secretariat. And of course, with all the input from the multiple stakeholders, international institutions, and all the members. But this was a special quote that came from the survey that we conducted. And it says that the COP has played a crucial role in promoting collaboration among countries, organizations, and experts in Africa to address this data gap and capacity constraints. So it's really showing the value of the COP, and the COP is actually already doing so much amazing work. And the strategy is essentially trying to say, how can we take what we've done and elevate it and see that we have the resources available to scale this fantastic benefits of the COP across Africa? So in order to do that, in order to realize this ambitious vision that we have for the COP, we developed these 4 pillars of implementation activities. The first one being is the Africa NCA CoP leadership. So it's understood that you know, there's this law of the lid. Any organization is only as good as its leader, and we need someone, and we need an organization that is founded and grounded within Africa, and this has come up in meetings before, in forums before held by the COP, that there is this appetite and this desire for the COP to be led by an African institution. So part of the strategy implementation is to identify and appoint this African host, and we do have discussions underway already about that. And then facilitating regional alignment of regional blocks, of institutions, and facilitating those collaborative engagements and team formation, and then to mobilize resources under this leadership. The COP will not be able to continue without secure resources being made available and committed to the COP. And part of this leadership is really to show what is the benefit of the COP. So we've built into the strategy that there needs to be this value proposition included, where we need, if we are to do NCA, why are we doing NCA? What are the big wins? What are the benefits of doing NCA? And related to that, what are the benefits of being part of the COP? And what can the COP do towards achieving those benefits for mainstreaming biodiversity across Africa? And so the second quadrant there is collaborative research and development. And this is really an exciting component. As someone that has worked on research policy collaborations before, we want to ensure that what's being done in terms of NCA development is towards the best practice, utilizing the latest science and the latest thinking, obviously in line with the system of environmental and economic accounts. And so part of the strategy is to establish within each of those regions, the regional blocks that I mentioned earlier, this, research policy collaborations. It's a really exciting component. We want to manage data well. We want to produce publications to show and share the wins, the value essentially of natural capital accounting. And then the third quadrant is training and capacity building. And, that's all to do with skills development, offering webinars, offering training, coordinating support and supporting working groups. So we have had working groups, and part of the survey, everyone that actually participated in the survey said that they are interested in being involved in a sector-specific working group. And we acknowledge that there is, of course, there's more funding, there's more technical support that is required for us to make that really work as part of the COP. And then the final part, after we've put this fantastic leadership in place, we've got our research and collaborations going, we've got exchanges across countries in terms of how to do NCA, what's working well, what's not working so well. We're capacitating NCA stakeholders and members of the COP, and now this next step is so crucial for us to share what we are doing, and that's why we have this communication and advocacy component, where we're having regular newsletters and translation of important natural capital accounting documents into different languages. French and Portuguese have come up so far. And then really to share the success stories in terms of NCA implementation across different countries, success stories from being a participant in the COP as a country focal person or an institution. And then part of that communication and advocacy is to develop, and we've put this into the strategy, an exciting new virtual user interface, where we will have a link towards our natural capital accounting data management system, where we will make available links and access to NCA-specific data for different countries and global data sets, and linking to existing data sets as well, but providing a platform that is easy to use, that is inviting, and where people can post a question or engage in a specific topic or access resources, NCA-related resources. So I know that there's a lot on the slide, but we wanted to show this because the COP is not merely about implementing activities. There's a lot of thought that has gone into it. We are working towards this ultimate vision of, creating this vibrant platform for advancing NCA and mainstreaming natural capital in Africa. So we've unpacked in the strategy all of these activities in terms of their expected outputs, and then outcomes, intermediate outcomes, and sustained outcomes in different themes that are relevant to mainstreaming and NCA development and data analysis, data processing, and essentially leveraging natural capital in Africa. So Yeah, from a systems lens, from a systems perspective, we want to show you in this slide that the activities that we've identified in the strategy, they are leading to outcomes, and those outcomes are leading to impact on the ground. Essentially, that's what we are aiming towards. But it's just to show that all the activities, they have different impacts and they have different linkages. So one specific activity can result in multiple outcomes, which is so exciting. So all the activities are essential. They need to happen in concert, and that is why we need to put a lot of effort into making sure that we facilitate the acquisition of resources to implement each and every activity within the strategy. So Mulugeta mentioned the phases earlier on as well, but acknowledging the fact that right now we don't have all the resources available to implement this ambitious strategy that we have developed, we acknowledge that we have to start somewhere. And phase one is really a short phase. It's 1 year where we're saying that we will continue and on what we are doing with the COP. It's essentially similar to the status quo, upgrading a little bit, a little more time, a little more effort in terms of engaging stakeholders and in terms of engaging regional blocks already in the first year, and in terms of securing specific funding in the first year for phases 2 and 3, where it's a lot more resource intensive, it's a lot more finance intensive. And so year 1 is really about us putting in the foundation to secure the in-kind and the financial commitments and support into years 2 and 3. And so, yeah, just to reiterate, this resource mobilization component is part of the strategy. It needs to be implemented as part of the strategy. And we have identified some recommended sources of support. The intention is hopefully for, at least within the first year, for World Bank's GPS program to hopefully continue supporting the COP along with the regional host that is to be identified. And we are looking towards securing continued commitments from our institutional partners and member countries. One of the ideas there in terms of the member countries is to operate like similar other international organizations where the membership fees are contributed. So there are many ways that resources can be identified and secured. And one of them is also obviously to tap into global funding sources. And part of what came out of the survey was that there was a demand expressed from members that the COP can support, for the COP to support the developing of financial proposals and the identification of financing opportunities for NCA development. And finally, in terms of this resource engagement component, we are at present having meetings, one-on-one meetings. We've had meetings with UNSD, we've had meetings with Conservation Strategy Fund, IUCN. We have a whole list of meetings set up, and already there's been fantastic support. Of course, all of these organizations have been part of the COP from the beginning, so it's actually, it hasn't been that a big challenge to get these fantastic organizations on board, because they're already on board and they are invested in making the COP a success. And so we are at this process, this point in time, we are saying we want to secure those commitments. We want to formalize them a bit more formally in terms of memorandums of understanding and agreement as part of the strategy implementation as well. So these are the categories that we've identified where we are asking potential members or institutions if they are, which of the categories they are able to support us and support the COP on. So that process is still ongoing. We've only just initiated those one-on-one discussions, but that's still going to be happening in the near future. And then the final slide is really, where do we go from here? So this webinar is really to present this draft. It's our draft ideas. And we are really looking towards getting feedback from the community. And part of what we will do next is to update and finalize, not finalize, but update the draft strategy document that we have developed with comments, with inputs from the community, and then present that to the steering committee, who will have the ultimate decision-making power in terms of adopting the strategy after we have addressed any additional recommendations that they would make for the strategy, any changes that they would suggest in terms of the strategy. And so, like I mentioned, the resource mobilization one-on-one engagements is still ongoing. And we plan to, hopefully, once the steering committee is happy with the document, publish the document and make it available for everyone to have access to. And of course, then the next step is to implement the strategy fully with the support from the institutions and the members and the COP community. So I think I really just want to finish off by saying the strategy is for the COP. The COP is a community, and the strategy will never be worth anything unless every one of us is invested in it. We all come to the table, we make the most of it, we participate in the COP, and the COP can only grow from strength to strength if all of us are engaged within it and participate in it. So I invite each and every one of you to join us and to work with the COP, with the Secretariat, to really have the intended impact that the COP is that's in the vision of the COP. So I thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rashida. And I think, as you might observe, it's this presentation looks like a very ambitious one, but we are positive that participating in international and regional organizations will give their support. The AUC, the UN, and all those 14 partner institutions will back it up, and we hope that we can achieve what you put as a big journey. And let's, Peter, back to you for questions and answers. A strategy is not good if a strategy is unimplementable. It's no more a strategy. So we have to make sure that it is something that could be supported by all of you, by the funding institutions, and we should be able to implement it smoothly and go beyond. We have also indicated in our document, which would be completed soon, that we would like to go beyond the 5 years. What the AUC in terms of getting the countries to support this initiative is the National Development Agenda. We're trying to make sure that the next, after 2030, what next? Where do we go from there? So we would like to bring in the AUC to use its political muscle to get the support of all member countries, like most regionally owned programs. Okay, back to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Rashida and Mulugeta, for this great presentation and the work that you've been doing so far. And we recognize that this is, as you rightly said, Rashida and Mulugeta, this is a strategy for the community of practice as a whole. So it's very important that in this work that we are doing, we are in the middle of it in terms of developing the strategy. It's very important that we get the right feedback, comments, and recommendations on how we can improve the way we've been doing business as a community of practice. The experts here, Dr. Mulugeta and Dr. Rashida, has gone through, provided the highlights, and we provided an executive summary of the strategy while we were inviting for registration for members, COP members to register. And we believe that this information can give a good assessment and a good information for members to look at the key areas where we want to improve and the key activities and actions that we are going to focus on for the next 5 years. So with this, we still have like 20 minutes or 15 minutes for open questions and answers and feedback from members. But also allow me to recognize the presence of our co-chair, Mr. Innocent Ona, who is from FDB, African Development Bank, who are the co-chairs of the steering committee, which is the overall governing body of the community of practice. With that, I will invite and open up for discussion, but also to encourage members here if you're not able to speak, you can also make your comments, feedback, and questions in the chat, and our esteemed presenters will be able to respond to them. So now I will now open the floor for questions and comments and feedback. You can raise your hand and then we can give you the floor. Thank you. Hello? Mulugeta, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, Rashida, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I think there might be some in the chat. There are a few questions in the chat box. If we can maybe start addressing those.
Please start. Go ahead and answer those questions. Yeah.
Okay, so someone asked if we can share the presentations. Yes, absolutely. They will be made available immediately after this webinar. And we've also made the summary available, which has changed slightly in terms of the targets that we've put in there, but it's a work in progress. It's not yet final. And somebody asking if we can access the full strategy. Absolutely, it will be available. But at this present state that the strategy is in is still in draft, and we are first taking it to the steering committee in order for approval before we release it out to the wider community. Peter, am I correct on that? Hello, Emma. Peter, are you frozen or me?
I think it was me who was frozen, but can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
You can go ahead and answer the questions in the chat.
Yes, so thanks a lot, Gunnar, for mentioning that the strategy is exciting. I agree with you. I feel exactly the same. But yeah, in terms of the different roles of various organizations, so that's something that we still are busy fleshing out. But in the past, we had different contributions by different organizations. I think, Peter, you can probably talk to this as well. So contributions were in terms of offering training, NCA-specific related training, hosting of NCA webinars for information sharing, for knowledge sharing, for knowledge exchange. We have organizations like the World Bank, who's a key contributor, who's contributed financially in terms of having the secretariat in place for implementing all the coordination activities, getting people together, hosting of the annual, not annual, the every 2 years, the COP forum. So different organizations have different roles to play. It's been a lot in terms of contributing and supporting NCA development and really facilitating and assisting different governments within Africa with developing NCA. Yes, Peter, I don't know if you have anything to add on the roles of the different institutions there.
Thank you, Rashida. I think you've done a good job in terms of explaining those roles, but what I can add on specifically to Gunnar's question, in terms of international organizations or partner institutions, are not only specifically international organizations, but also regional organizations, because the community of practice has regional organizations that are based and are founded here in Africa. And then we have partner institutions that are international in nature, like World Bank, like UNSD, like UNEP, and all others. Main their role has been to provide support in terms of technical support, providing capacity building, and organizing webinars and sharing their experiences, but also in terms of providing the needed finance for the community of practice to do its activities. And then governments are the real implementers of these COP activities by developing the accounts and doing the natural capital accounting within their respective countries, but also in terms of leading and governing the community of practice. As you know, both the partner institutions and the government focal point persons are the one who are the members of the steering committee divided regionally across the whole continent, from north to west to south to central and to southern Africa. So in principle, that's what I can say. Then members come from different organizations, but also they represent themselves as experts, because some of the work that has been being done here in the community of practice is being done by the experts, individual experts and firms that are based here in the community of practice. So they have been getting also business in terms of providing the needed technical capacity to member countries, but also to share their experiences with other countries and other individual members. So in a nutshell, it's a combination and it's a mix of different members and organizations, but playing different role, but with the aim of achieving the goals of the community of practice.
Peter, can I come in?
Yes, please, Mulugeta, you can come in.
Yeah, I think the whole objective of this new exercise, developing the strategies, to make sure we have a formal commitment from partner institutions, schedule of activities, resource allocations by each partner institution, and also by member countries if they can contribute. So it should not be in a haphazard way. Whenever they can come in, and other times they don't attend, but we want to have a formalized, agreed upon implementation plan of the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mulugeta. And then maybe Rashid and Mulugeta, you could answer also this question from Adam Dutton. Does the strategy consider the review of the system of national accounts 2025, which will include more natural capital in core national accounts, notably depletion of natural resources as a cost of production? That's one question from Adam. And then another question comes from Ken Finley. Finally, and pleasure to have you, Ken Finley. Ken Finley was the expert who was working on the ocean account working group for the community of practice, and is asking, is there an appetite for marine and ocean NCA within the strategy and the roadmap? He's saying that, sorry if we missed that in the presentation. So maybe you can respond to these questions, and then we can again later on give floor to answer other questions and give floor to members to provide their feedbacks directly. Over to you, Rashid and Mulugeta.
Hi, just to respond to the SNA, the review of the SNA. So we don't have any specifics in terms of NCA implementation that we are pushing forward in terms of the strategy. The strategy is really about the operation of community members in the CoP. It's about sharing of knowledge. It's about accessing training and accessing information. So if UNSD makes a training available on the review of system of national accounts, that's something that the CoP will facilitate in a collaboration to make a webinar available or to address that. If there's an appetite from the community for that type of training or awareness to be created, the CoP will facilitate that. But the strategy doesn't get to like those specifics at this point. So we've identified that we want training to be implemented, but it's still a next step to identify exactly what training we do incorporate into the strategy. I don't know if any of the Secretariat wants to add to that.
Thank you, Rashida. I think you have explained that correctly, rightly. So maybe just to add more questions from our colleagues on the chat, Mark Gellard from Conservation Strategy Fund is asking a question from discussions with the various country members and focal points. Do you have insights into what the biggest hurdles are facing countries in their quest to implement and expert NCA? And then Shaima Abu is asking, I would like to ask, what are the procedures or requirements for a person to become a focal point in his or her ministry or country? I'll respond that, but I can give the floor to Rashida to respond to the first question, and then we'll come back later and answer that question on how member countries can join and officially nominate focal point persons.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. It's like a really critical question mark. And we have had many discussions, and there's, unfortunately or fortunately, but it always comes down to funding. So there's always an appetite for NCA to be developed. So some of the challenges include that there's not always the correct data sets available, or the data is being collected, but it has gaps in the data. So there's, there's various challenges in terms of perhaps there's not a champion for NCA to be taken forward in a particular country. So there's many hurdles for the implementation of NCA, but of course the strategy doesn't really dig into that, addressing each and every hurdle, but that is something that we've incorporated into the strategy to say we can decide as a collective that we want to start a working group where we are like going to focus on addressing specific hurdles, but the general ones in terms of lack of funding availability, that's kind of trying to be addressed in terms of making funding opportunities available, not making it available, but enlightening the community to available funding opportunities, and working together to develop proposals for obtaining funding for NCA development. And then, the lack of capacity is also an issue and a hurdle in terms of NCA development. And that's another thing that the CoP is trying to address through making training available on specific NCA, on developing NCA data sets and making NCA methodologies and tools available. So I hope that answers your question on that one.
You can,
Yes.
Rashida, you can also respond to Fadek. Ayala is asking, does the strategy address regional challenges, risks, and unique characteristics of each region?
So the intention is yes, absolutely, but we haven't done so yet. So in the strategy, we have a key component, and we said as part of the leadership pillar that we are going to establish these regional blocks or regional collaborative organizations, because each region faces different challenges. Each region has access to different types of resources. There's different climates and habitats and all sorts of similarities within regions, where those regional countries can work together to address challenges in a more structured way. So we acknowledge that, and this is why we've incorporated into the strategy the development and the establishment of regional blocks. Yes.
Thank you, Rashida. Let me respond to the question asked by Shema on the procedures or requirements for a person to become a focal point or his her ministry or country. There are two ways, tracks. One, we have already, as a community of practice, we've tried to reach out to all countries, specifically government institutions, the ministries of finance and economic planning, the ministries of environment and natural resources. We've been reaching out to them, writing them officially to join the community of practice. And second track, we've been using members like you, Shema, to, if you see that your country is not yet a member, an official member of the community of practice, we work with you to reach out to the right institutions within your country to help them to join, and also actually to advocate the importance of the community of practice and why member countries should join the community of practice. And actually, we highly encourage that the community of practice is a larger community of practice, but we highly encourage that even we have national community of practice meetings, and you can discuss, and you can always even invite the community of practice secretariat to join and work with you to make sure that your member countries can join. But again, it's for you to be a focal point person who is recognized by the community of practice. It has to come from your respective government institutions nominating you to be member to represent them in the community of practice. But also there is an option on our website, CoP website, where you can join as an individual in your respective capacity, whether you are an NGO, private sector, a civil society organization, or an individual expert who is interested, or in from academia. You can join the community of practice directly. There is a form, and you can fill that form, and officially we can let you join the community of practice. So there are different ways, but please reach out to us for further discussions on how you can officially join the community of practice, but also encourage and promote the community of practice to your respective countries to join officially the community of practice. Just to add another question, which came from Rahat Jaben, is saying, do we have tentative list of countries? Yes, we have the official member countries, and as we speak today, we have 20 members of the community of practice. We can share this list to make sure that you can see whether your country is there, and we can work with you to make sure that going forward, your country, if it is not an official member of the community of practice, we can work together to make sure that happens as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Can I come in again? Just to add, Gunnar is saying about the roles and responsibilities. So the strategy does have a governance structure that's built into it. And essentially, the steering committee is the overarching decision maker or the leaders of the strategy. And the steering committee is really made up of governments and institutions, right? So the way we identify training, the way we identify which webinars to take forward, it's all coming from the demand within the NCA community. So these actors that are on the steering committee, that are in high-level positions within government, are aware of the challenges that we are facing in certain sectors. And so the demand and the immediate attention does come into play. So there's a strong governance structure and a fantastic mechanism for identifying critical issues that are arising, and they come up at different times in different places. And so this is why the steering committee and having high-level actors on the steering committee has been really crucial and instrumental in terms of guiding what the CoP does, guiding the types of training being produced, guiding the collaborations that we're trying to put in place. So yeah, it's been kind of on a high level, and I think Peter, if you can also respond to this as well. So there's this question about where do individual members fit in, stakeholders that are not necessarily part of governments or part of institutions, but also part of the CoP, and have this ambition to achieve the vision of the CoP. Yeah, I don't think that we've really allowed enough space for the discussion of individual members, and I really thank you for raising that, because that's definitely something that I think we need to flesh out a bit more in terms of the strategy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rashida.
Can I come in, Peter? Can I come in?
Yes, Rashida. Mulugeta, you can come in, please.
Yeah, I think we are getting good feedback from the different issues raised at the chat box. First of all, the strategy might be short of suggesting which accounts we should be done at by whom and when. We have not gone to those details. If there is a need, I think there's a lot of work done by each member countries could be included. Secondly, the responsibility of the different structures are clearly indicated, articulated in the document. What are the roles of the CoP, the Secretariat, the steering committee? If we organize regional leads, who is going to do that? The focal persons, what are the responsibilities? How do they coordinate in a country? Because as Peter mentioned, the members of the national group in a country are composed from different ministries: agriculture, finance, planning, statistics. How do these members of the country NCA team work together so that they can have a good articulation of what was there in that country? So those specific roles to be played is clearly indicated in the document. Sorry, we have not shared those details in this one. Secondly, we are engaged now with the development partner institutions that are listed, about 14 of them. We are having a one-to-one discussion. We are trying to define what roles they want to play. You know, what's the role of certain international partners. An example is ECA, UNECA is running the website, but we know what feedback we got about the effectiveness of the website and so on. So we are defining, trying to put in the strategy what the roles of each partner institutions. So the strategy document may not be rich enough in terms of discussing the technical activities that are supposed to be done, but again, and it is the COP members that in each country have, it must be demand driven, it must be worked in a very coordinated way, and the secretariat's role is going to be revamped, not like in the past, but we expect that there will be more technical role to be played by the secretariat in the years ahead. So that's my, but we'll consider. So once we got the engagement, we need to get the feedback of you, and we circulate the document to get the feedback. We'll have probably accommodated most of the issues that are mentioned. Thank you.
So much, Mulugeta and Rashida. I think we are way past our time, which is 3 minutes past time. So allow me that we thank you so much for a very interactive discussion and a lot of questions, a lot of excitement, a lot of interest in this strategy and roadmap. And please reach out. I've shared in the chat my email, my telephone number, which is on WhatsApp. If you want to reach out to the experts who are working on the strategy, if you want to reach out to the Secretariat, please do so that we can get your feedback, written feedback, and we will share the strategy in its advancement. We will make sure that we share the key areas where we think that all members should provide comments, recommendations as we move along in adopting the strategy, but also we want to make sure that this strategy is owned by all COP members. So with that, allow me now to invite Ms. Singawa for the closing. And thank you so much for a very interactive and productive discussion.
Peter, thank you so much. I think you've done much of the rounding up. I think a big applause to Mulu again and Rashida for that amazing summary of a very comprehensive document that has been prepared. And as the team has in their responses, this document will be fully available to the COP members. As I mentioned in my remarks, this is a product of the community of practice members. It is owned by each and every individual who's part of this community of practice. And this is why, as a secretariat, we are keen in ensuring that all levels of engagement is undertaken. So I think moving on from here, we'll be going to the steering committee meeting, which is the governance structure of this community of practice. Again, from there, this is the leadership of this community of practice. And so it's important that we get them on board and get them to also endorse and look at the document a little bit closely in terms of questioning and asking the respective areas that you have raised in this which you have raised in this discussion. Thank you again to the different partner institutions that joined. I think this strategy again falls a little bit so much on you in terms of the commitment. So we are very thankful for the individual meetings that you have accepted to have with Rashida and Mulo, so that we can go a little bit further in defining what it is your respective roles will be. Thank you to the team that the questions in terms of the role of individuals. As individual members of the community of practice, you have even a bigger role to play, as much as you it's not about the government or the institutions. As individuals, you belong to those particular countries, so when there are activities in those countries that are about natural capital accounting, you become part of the stakeholders discussing and engaging in those discussions. As much as our objective is about mainstreaming natural capital accounting, you play a key role. Same applies to academia, so that this is sustainable. It's not just about this community, but it's about the practical activities that we are actually doing in our respective countries. So thank you so much. not to draw this. Our financing window, that is the GPS team, our grant manager Bekele would have loved to also give few remarks to the team, just to thank everyone for continuing supporting this community of practice and being active. So we look forward to the next presentation, which will be with the steering committee, but again with sharing the strategy with the rest of you. So thank you so much. Peter, do you want to do the
WebEx technicians?
Sorry, Mulo? Okay, over to you, Peter. Do you want to close?
Oh, thank you so much. There's nothing more to add on that. Thank you. Have a nice day, and we look forward to hear from you. But we'll also share all the materials to allow you to provide the right written feedback in the strategy. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.